Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all here as I get adjusted. This is Congressman Mike Coffman. I'm just a radio guy, so I don't know how to do these TV things. You know Congressman Coffman. My name is Stephen Tubbs. I do the morning show on KOA News Radio here in Denver. We're on 5 to 10, and judging by that rousing rouse of applause, you all listen every day. Thank you. First and foremost, I like to start I am in front of a crowd by acknowledging to me the most important portion of our population as our veterans. The veterans are tonight. Thank you. So thank you very much for coming. We will have an organized, well-spoken, calm event tonight. And Congressman's given 1 hour of his time tonight, so we'll get right into it. There are guidelines, as you all know. And let me know if I'm interrupting you at all.
Yeah.
Thanks. And I would assume there are some in here that don't like politicians, and you certainly don't like the media. So with that said, we're happy to be up here. But we do care about our community. I know Congressman Coffman is a veteran of both the United States Army and our Marine Corps. Thank you. Just full disclosure, I consider Mike a good friend. I've voted for him in the last however many elections. I also try to be as impartial a journalist as I can. Mike this weekend, and I heard that laugh, Mike this weekend is going to be the lead guest on our new program on the weekends called the American Veterans Show. If you don't know it, just remember AmericanVeteransShow.com. We'd love to have you listen. But Congressman Coffman was kind enough yesterday to be our lead guest, and a more expanded look at him, his career, and things like Syria, North Korea, healthcare, veterans, of course the Veterans Hospital here close to us. So Congressman, I know maybe an opening statement and then we'll get to the questions.
No, let's just get right to the questions.
Okay. You mind if I sit? Is that okay? So we have two podium mics, I understand. One is above, which doesn't look like it's going to be used, but one down here.
We are just now getting the tickets to bring in to pull up for the raffle. So if you want to give a quick opening, Congressman, I'll bring in the tickets.
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming here tonight. I know it's a tough time for the country all the way around, and so I look forward to your questions. Let me just say a word about the difference between the district office and the office in Washington. And so in the district office, we do constituent work. And so in constituent work is that, and certainly I do both, constituent policy work, meetings in the office. But so constituent work is if somebody has a problem with disability, trying to get disability, and they can't get through the process. Somebody has an immigration problem and they've gone through the process and they're just not getting answers. A veteran issue where they've applied for disability and it's not happening. All of those things and anything with the federal government, we help individuals on, and so there are specialized people in that office. So if you have an issue or you know of somebody, please let us know so we can help them out. And in the Washington D.C. office, it's all about policy. And so I'm on two committees right now. I'm still on the Veterans Committee. But I'm no longer a chairman there, subcommittee chairman. I'm on the Disability Committee. Really want to work on those issues. On the Armed Services Committee, because we're allowed to have one leadership position, on the Armed Services Committee, I'm the new subcommittee chairman for military personnel. So that's all the personnel system, whether it's promotions, recruiting, retention, force structure, all of those issues come under that healthcare, come under that subcommittee. So it's a lot of work. And let me know when you guys are ready, so we can start taking questions.
We've got the fishbowl, Mike.
We ready to go? Okay.
Yeah. All right. Usually I have children come and pull the. Any children here? Okay.
There we go.
We'll do the last three numbers. This is number 659. 659. $659. You want to go once, twice, next?
All right.
All right.
Sure. Yeah.
You bet. Do you want to come to the mic? Is that best for everybody?
It's hard.
Now let's not get too frustrated before the first question. I think they're going to bring the mic to you, and I'll draw the next number here so we can get ready. Okay, your next number 640. 640 is the next question.
Oh, you can hold it. Okay, Senator Coffman, I'm a home care worker. My name's Melissa Benjamin. I've been providing care for 17 years. I'm also one of your constituents, and I take care of clients in your district. Under the Trump Care bill, 47,000 individuals that are your constituents would lose access to health care and Medicaid, including services that I provide. I was shocked when you said that you would support Trump and Trump Care, and now that they're looking at repealing again with more cuts than the previous version, home care workers like myself would like to know if you will sit down with us as home care workers in the next 2 weeks to discuss how this bill is going to hurt us and our consumers if you decide to continue supporting Trump over the people that live here. So, Mr. Coffman, will you meet with us in the next 2 weeks?
Sure. I'll meet with you. Let me tell you, where are we at right now with on Medicaid? And that is that I don't know where it's all going to settle out, but let me tell you what my big issue is on Medicaid. And and so there are three things that really concern me. I think one is certainly maintaining consumer protections like pre-existing conditions moving forward. And I think that, and the other is the Medicaid expansion that I'll talk about in a minute. Those are the two. And the third, I'm sorry, is fixing the insurance exchanges. And that I think that the president, where I disagree with the president when he says, "Oh, let's let these things implode, and then people will want to fix them. Then the Democrats will wake up and want to fix them." Well, here's the problem: that's not fair to the people that are on them. And so on the Medicaid expansion that I'm concerned about. So what I think are you skilled nursing or I'm sorry?
Yeah, I'm a CNA. I've been providing care.
Okay, because I really think you're mischaracterizing the bill when it comes to skilled nursing. But I'll be happy to go over with you.
No, sir, they would cut $880 billion.
Well, I don't know where you got that number. Okay, let me explain about Medicaid expansion. Okay, Medicaid expansion. Okay. We're going to meet, but I think your numbers are wrong. On the Medicaid expansion, in 1965, Medicaid started and grew to essentially three programs: the elderly, skilled nursing care, disabled, and children and families. So that then what the Affordable Care Act did when we talk about covering more people, it wasn't through private insurance as intended. It was through the Medicaid expansion. And the Medicaid expansion is essentially, let's take able-bodied people up to 138% of the poverty line, and then we'll cover them able-bodied adults without dependents. So what that effect, here's the problem that I have. Then it said, but we're going to do it, we'll do it at 95% federal, and then by 2020, we'll come down to 90% federal, and we'll just kind of stay there. Well, Skilled nursing is 50% federal. Children are 50% federal. Disabled are 50% federal. I mean, I really think that we should phase it in to what the state and federal obligation is on all other Medicaid programs for the Medicaid expansion. So that in 2020, let's say we take all new people coming on, will be at the same FMAP or split that we have right now. But after that, the new enrollees should be at that 50-50 split, 50% federal, 50% state.
Okay, we'll go to our next question.
Right here.
I believe, ma'am, can we please, let's keep decorum, please. Our next question, 640, I believe, is from our...
Okay, here we go. Question 640.
640. Please be respectful, please.
Thank you, Congressman Coffman. My name is Rebecca Kim, and my family strongly supports our military and our veterans. I have a question for you about the new VA hospital. I recently accompanied my father to an eye appointment and was appalled by the facility. While my parents have always been very complimentary of the doctors and staff at the hospital, I could not believe the condition of the overall facility. I was saddened that our veterans do not have better conditions and a more welcoming hospital. Where is the construction currently? Are they still slated for opening in beginning of 2018? And is there going to be an investigation into the past leadership?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. So on the VA hospital that is literally $1 billion in cost overruns and years behind schedule. So first of all, there were at the time. We're almost, 2017 will be partially done, and thanks for the service of your family. Then 2018, it should be fully open. The Army Corps of Engineers has taken over the project from the Department of Veterans Affairs. The push for a criminal investigation. The FBI did refer charges to the Justice Department on the individual who was in charge of the construction. But under the last administration, it didn't go anywhere. I'm bringing the issue up again in the hope that we do get a criminal prosecution on that. The fundamental issue is this, that we had lots of whistleblowers come and give us information that said that it didn't comport with what was coming from the VA. And so time after time, the individual in charge lied before the Congress of the United States under oath. And so ought to be prosecuted for that. And so, and also we will hopefully reauthorize this summer the choice program that will allow veterans who are within a certain distance, I think 40 miles outside of a VA facility driving time, or can't get an appointment wait time within 30 days to be able to access a private provider outside the VA reimbursed by the VA.
All right. Our next question is from number 658, and I will also draw one more so we can get ready. Okay.
Hi, my name is Rachel Sherwood. My question today is about Trump's war on facts, his war on science, and the war against climate change. Personally appalled at the actions taken on the executive branch to limit the actions of the Environmental Protection Agency, to dump the waste from coal into streams, and as the congressman of a state that has abundant wildlife and national parks and resources, what are you going to do to protect the natural resources of this state and the climate that we live in?
So a couple of points. I think one point is certainly I supported two bills, 1440, 1431, that I think will bring science to the Environmental Protection Agency by making sure all their work is peer reviewed. Those who understand. I think that we've made extraordinary gains in terms of reducing carbon in the United States. Now, we can certainly do more, but here's where I think that environmental policy ought to be integrated into trade policy. Because what we've done, as we've increased the cost of manufacturing in the United States to reduce carbon, which is something we should do. One of our greatest exports has been jobs. Jobs to countries that have no environmental standards. And so what are we doing then? We're importing goods once manufactured in the United States that are now made in countries that have no environmental standards. And we're buying those goods, obviously at a lesser cost. Environmental policy ought to be integrated with trade policy. That they ought to be subject to the same standards that we are.
Please adhere to the guidelines. Thank you. Thank you. Two numbers here. 658 was our next number, and then the next number after that, 504. 658 and 504. Take over here, Mike.
Okay.
Your constituent? Yeah, I don't. Okay.
Does that microphone work?
All right. Cool. I think I can hear me now. All right. So today I went to a doctor's appointment with my cousin that I take care of. He's an epileptic and he has a condition called mesial temporal sclerosis. And today it came out that we need to start talking about some surgery options for him. And the doctor's telling us that he's on Medicaid, that they're not sure if they're going to be able to approve the best surgery, because they're starting to see the Medicaid companies, the Medicaid, not approve the things that have prior authorizations like they used to before. And it's not because of the bills, it's because of the budget, because their budget just got slashed. So how do you respond to that, and what are you going to do to make sure that the people on Medicaid now get the protection they need? Because he's going to die.
Sure. The federal government doesn't set Medicare rates. Medicaid rates, I'm sorry. It's Medicaid, correct? The state sets Medicaid rates. We do match 50-50 in your particular case, and I'm sorry about the condition for your husband, and I hope he does get the best care that he can get. So so the question is can we do better with the Medicaid program? It is a fee-for-service program. Can we do better in the delivery process of Medicaid so that the care, the outcomes are better, and that in the long run we do save money? But I would certainly be willing to talk to you offline as a constituent about that. But that Medicaid is a state-managed program.
Okay. All right. The next question was 504. 504, and the next question after that will come from 571. You're on deck.
Good evening, Congressman Coffman.
Oh, yeah.
How are you?
Good.
In 1994, you sponsored legislation, HB 1210,
yes,
to reform the small group health insurance market in Colorado by prohibiting health insurance companies from denying coverage based on any pre-existing medical conditions, and provided for adjusted community rating and prohibited gender discrimination, so that insurance companies couldn't charge women more for their policies than they charge men. The legislation was passed by bipartisan support. The question is, would you comment on your work in 1994 and how it relates to the revised American Health Care Act?
Sure. Thank you. So what did the first version I have of the bill was more extensive. So the states don't regulate the larger group market, but the states regulate small groups and the individual market. Prior to the Affordable Care Act, the Affordable Care Act took over a lot of that regulation. But prior to that, states did. And so I introduced the first bill that, and essentially what it did was it prohibited insurance companies from well, it did what's called guaranteed issue, where people could not be denied insurance based on pre-existing conditions. It did adjusted community rating, in other words, limited the amount of underwriting that was allowed. No gender discrimination. Unfortunately, the insurance industry amended out the individual market from the bill, but the small group market was left intact. If we look at the Affordable Care Act, the consumer protections, many of them are the same, but the individual market is covered. And so, so the central issue is preserving those consumer protections that were once in Colorado law that are now in the Affordable Care Act in whatever we do going forward.
Okay. Pam Serbo, and my question is, it's a two-parter, Congressman. Why is it acceptable for procedure pricing to be considered proprietary information by hospitals so that patients have no idea on the front end how much it'll cost them? Patients are being deliberately kept in the dark, so how can patients make an informed decision? We don't even purchase our cell phones without knowing what the plan costs are up front.
Sure. Sure. That's a very good point. Very good point. I think a lot of it is covered by state regulation, but the fact is we need transparency. We need transparency in healthcare. I mean, people ought to, there's so much cost shifting, people really ought to know what they're paying for. And I think so. Your point's just well taken. I mean, and from one facility to the next, I mean, the disparities are absolutely incredible. And so, if you're going to ever have, you know, consumers being able to, you know, price shop and buy, you've got to have transparency, and it's got to be apples to apples. Thank you.
Okay.
Sure. This is right now covered in, you know, the state law versus federal law. Let me tell you, I think that having been a state legislator, when something is currently done in state law, I don't want to take it to the federal level. I think the federal government does too much. And as a result of doing too much, they didn't do very many things very well. At the state level, somebody, a citizen, a private citizen, could go down to that legislature and testify on any bill. Try doing that in Washington, D.C. It is just too true. There are things that Washington, D.C. must do, but it's doing too many things.
Guys, help me out. My last number I drew was 571. Is that where we are? Okay, hold on. Wait for the microphone, please. And 644, you are on deck. 644.
My name is Xiomara Sanchez. First of all, I'm an immigrant and I'm a citizenship, originally from Colombia. And I will always be proud of that. So I have been providing care as a home care worker for 10 years. My clients have pre-existing conditions, just like myself. A number of them are your constituents. And you have promised to protect people with pre-existing conditions, but the new version of Trump Care will eliminate those protections. Now that the new version of the bill eliminates protections for people with pre-existing, are you going to side with Trump, or are you going to keep your promise and stand with your constituents? We just want to know why. You've seen a version of the bill that I haven't. But
I will protect pre-existing conditions. I think it's vitally important. I made that commitment early on. I will maintain that commitment. No, gracias.
Okay, next question.
Hey, Congressman, more budget and more employees for the Internal Revenue Service means more revenue, meaning the federal government can do more of just about everything. Are you in favor of more for the IRS?
And am I in favor of more for the IRS? Well, I'm in favor of people in the IRS doing their job. And I got to tell you, when I look across the spectrum of the federal government, I mean, there are just, the bureaucracy is so enormous. And so the fact that we can't make cuts in terms of efficiency, I disagree with that. When I look at and let me tell you, I think every department, and I disagree with a lot of my colleagues on the Republican side that think that the only metric in terms of national security is how much we spend on defense. And let me tell you that I think the Department of Defense is so top-heavy. I mean, I got to tell you that as our military has shrunk in size, that this bureaucracy has grown. We have more admirals and ships in the United States Navy. I mean, it's amazing. And so well, I don't think we do. I mean, I think that at the end of there'll be a negotiation. His budget, the defense part will go down. I think discretionary domestic spending will go up some. But we do have a deficit in capability in the military in terms of the threats we have. But we've got to, every dollar wasted by the Pentagon is a dollar spent not defending America. And one of the tough decisions we're going to have to do that I support, that came from the Obama administration, and I believe that out of the Trump administration that supports it, is the United States Army and the United States Air Force are about a third over in terms of their military bases in the United States. Third over. That's a lot of money to maintain facilities that you don't need. And I know it's very controversial. Everybody likes the jobs and everything, but it's wrong. And so I've done everything I can to BRAC-proof what we call the Base Realignment Closure Commission, the largest employer in this congressional district, which is the Air Force Base. 1,000 acres we're procuring with the Air Force and donations from Aurora and Arapahoe County in the state of Colorado that will be open space, that will trails and stuff like that, which will prevent encroachment on the base, so we can hopefully keep the base around a lot longer. But so I think we've got a lot of challenges all over the federal government, to include the Department of Defense.
Okay. Next question. Did we get to 644? Did we get to 644? 644, go ahead.
I'm up here. Thank you.
There you are.
I'm up here for 644. My name is Irma Sturgill, and I live in Centennial, and I feel like we should be on a first-name basis. I've written you so many letters, so I'm appreciative of being here today. And I apologize if my question was given, a similar question was given before, because we were from overflow. It concerns transparency in government. As tax day approaches, most of us here will be filing our taxes. Some of us have a grave concern about transparency as it relates to Donald Trump's taxes. My question to you is, do you support the release of his taxes so that those of us in the room who have that concern can be assured that he is not profiting from our tax dollars?
So first of all, the President is required to file disclosure requirements, as every member of Congress and every appointee. Wait. That includes all their investments, all their liabilities. So the one thing that is not in law is tax liability, tax returns. So I would support that certainly going forward, but not just the President. The President, Vice President, all political parties, and every member of Congress ought to put up their tax returns. So every year we have to file the disclosure for the prior year that the tax returns be required to that. You cannot change. You can't change the law. You can't do ex post facto. You cannot do ex post facto.
Okay, again, please adhere to the guidelines. Please adhere to the guidelines. If you'd like to be heard, I hope I draw your number. Okay, can we move on? In an effort to get as many questions as we can, I'm going to announce 4 numbers, please. So then if you call your number, you get to the microphone. And congratulations, 644 from the top. So far, the biggest applause. 524, 566, 633, 559. Once again, can we please, if you miss your number, it's not my fault. 524.
Mr. Coffman, I want to...
Excuse me, 566, 633, 559, the next 4 questions. Thank you.
I think that last question about the president's taxes is so important, but I want to follow up and make sure that we all understand your last statement. Sure. You said we can't do it ex post facto. Sure. And so I'd like to know, are you saying that the Congress doesn't have that power, or it would be unconstitutional to pass such legislation? Look, or are you saying that you think it's unfair at this point to ask him to release his taxes?
Both. It's probably both. Look, the fact is, you had the rules going into the campaign. Those were the rules going into the campaign. There was no legal requirement for him to do that. And let me ask this question. How many of you have read his disclosure? His financial, you really have? So, then what is in the taxes that's not in the financial disclosure? Okay, next question. Next question.
We'll go to the next question.
Representative Coffman, you are endorsed by the NRA. I could enumerate a list of votes that you've made to support the gun industry. Thank you. I had my bag checked 3 times to enter this venue. I assume that was to protect you. What are you doing to protect me? That gun ownership is a law-abiding activity.
Sure.
That is not my issue. My issue is that I need protection too, choosing not to have guns, choosing not to have concealed weapons. So what are you doing to protect me, such as universal background checks, gun registration of gun clubs, gun sales, assault weapons bans? I have rights too.
Sure. We clearly don't want people we don't want criminals, felons with firearms. We don't want people that are mentally not there or not with firearms. What I have supported in the Congress of the United States is the funding to support the federal system that allows states to access to do their background checks. And so I think, though, that each state the Wyoming is not New York, and each state is going to have different standards as to the restriction of firearms and their interpretation of the Second Amendment, which is in the Constitution of the United States, which I support. Okay.
We got to move on to our next question. We're going to move on to our... Guys, if you could tell me, please, what number we are on so I can keep track. Thank you. What number?
9. 559.
559. Thank you.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Sorry. My name is Cindy Finnegan. I live in Greenwood Village. According to votesmart.org, you are on record with respect to the federal budget to slightly increasing education, the environment, and international aid, and maintaining the current status for FEMA, Homeland Security, Defense, federal and state law enforcement, medical research, national parks, public health services, scientific research, space exploration programs, transportation, and highway infrastructure. That is what you support maintaining current funding for. Trump's quote-unquote skinny budget is advocating cuts to education, the environment, international aid, justice, medical and scientific research, health and human services, NASA, national parks, transportation, and highway infrastructure. It proposes a huge boost to defense spending. Yes or no, will you stand your ground on your budget, or will you cave and fall in line with Trump's budget proposal?
So, I mean, the president's budget is an aspirational budget by the executive branch. What I have said before is that I believe that what he does is he pluses up defense and he lowers discretionary domestic. I believe defense is important, but I don't believe it ought to go to that level. And so these programs are going to come up from the president's budget. Are they going to at what level we're going to negotiate? I don't know. But let me tell you what I'm not for. I'm not for drawing lines in the sand or hard lines where you shut down the government. I'm not for that.
We'll get to our next question.
Right. 559 as well from upstairs.
One more time on the number, please.
559 from upstairs.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay. Hello, my name is Sherry, and I just have a question for you on a single-payer health system. Why are you opposed?
Sure.
And just would like to understand that, seeing so every other country in the world seems to be able to manage that, but us.
Well, good. Let me tell you why I'm opposed. I'm opposed to a single-payer health system because government always overpromises, and we are a nation that is $20 trillion in debt. And I believe that I think that level of debt is a threat to the security of this country, and I'm not going to support a brand new entitlement program that will drive the debt.
Okay, we're going to get... Please follow the guidelines. Thank you. 524, I still have on deck, as well as 633. Is that correct? And I'm two more for you. 524. Okay, we'll get to you in just a sec. 551 is in the queue. And 563, also in the queue. And I'm sorry, sir, what was your number? 524. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Congressman Coffman, for coming to the town meeting. I'm a registered Republican in your House district. I'm sorry to say I was shocked that you declared your intention to vote for the American Health Care Reform Act, the so-called Trump Care Bill, and to replace the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare. That's not the way we do things here in Colorado. The Affordable Care Act is the law of the land. Now, please tell me specifically what you're going to do going forward, what you intend to do to revise, strengthen, and bolster Obamacare so that it will support the health care needs of your constituents here in House District 6 and elsewhere in Colorado, what will you do to revise, strengthen, and bolster Obamacare?
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you for your question. When it passed, I was in the congressional health care plan available to all federal employees. And I dropped out of that plan to go through, go into the Affordable Care Act. No, I didn't. I did it without the subsidy. I went through Connect for Colorado. And so it was about the same, at that time, $600 for the bronze plan that I bought through Connect for Health. My deductibles went from $300 to $4,500, and between $4,500 and $6,200, I was responsible for 40%. And, well, let me tell you, I think every member of Congress should have done exactly what I did. They should be subject to all the rules, regulations, and laws they impose upon the American people. So I think those three things that I mentioned before, I really fundamentally believe that this Medicaid expansion is driving the deficit, and so we've got to bring it back down to that 50-50 split with the states. I think we've got to fix. I think we can fix. I think there is a fix, and I'm working. And if I have to introduce it separately, I'll introduce it separately for the health insurance exchange. And so, I mean, I think that there are things that can be done to stabilize that. Right now, about a third of counties across America are down to one carrier. And as they lose their one carrier, then, in fact, those individuals in that area will not have access to the subsidies that are available under the Affordable Care Act, or would be available, well, there would be tax policy under, I think along the lines of some kind of, in Colorado at one time, we had Colorado Care, not Colorado Care, but it was we taxed all insurance products to go into a high-risk insurance pool. I don't think you need to necessarily, you can have it invisible by having a reinsurance pool. So in other words, there are revenue mechanisms that we have to look at where you take those in the individual market and above a certain, at a certain cost, you take that, absorb that cost in a reinsurance market. And by doing that, you can lower the rates for those people. So I'm working on that as a solution.
We're going to get to our next question. Please follow the guidelines. We'll get to as many questions as we can. Ma'am, if you could give me your number so I know.
633.
633, thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. This is about communication. My question is, when the majority of your constituents' input to you strongly disagrees with the Republican Party position in notable issues, what will it take for you to vote with your constituents and not the opponents?
I don't know if, I'm not going to ask how you voted, but I think I've won a few elections around here, and so I think the people in the majority of the people in this district believe that I'm representing them.
Please follow the guidelines. Thank you. Please follow the guidelines. Other people would like to ask a question. I have on deck 563. Is that you, sir? 563. What's your number, please?
551.
551. I've got 563, and I'll draw two more so you can get lined up. The next one is 680. 680. And 649 will be our next in queue.
Okay. Yes, I'm Bruce Fred, and I'm a resident of Arapahoe County. The emoluments clause that the Constitution provides that no person holding any office of profit or trust under the Constitution shall, without the consent of Congress, accept any present or emolument of any kind whatsoever from any king, prince, or foreign state. Now, President Trump has not divested himself of the right to receive income from his property, either now or, if he has now, he will receive it once he leaves the presidency. There's a Trump hotel in D.C. that has specifically marketed itself to foreign embassies. The Trump organization has loans from Deutsche Bank, an agency of the German government, and the Bank of China, obviously an agency of a foreign nation. He has sold or leased property to Russian oligarchs, and he likely has financial ties to Russian-owned banks, but we can't determine that for sure. The Trump organization has received valuable patents and trademarks from the Chinese government since he's been elected. I believe that as U.S. citizens, we have a right to know if President Trump is violating the Emoluments Clause, and if so, what is the extent of those violations? President, Mr. Coffman, would you support a congressional investigation into the possible violations of the Emoluments Clause?
Well, I think if he is not honest about his disclosure, in terms of that's required every year, then that's a criminal issue.
Next question, please. Go ahead, sir.
Representative Coffman.
Please follow the guidelines. Thank you.
So the 6th Congressional District is a very diverse district.
I can't
Someone,
hear you.
yeah, I want to start again, sir.
So Representative Coffman, the 6th Congressional District is a very diverse district made up of roughly equal parts of Democrats, Republicans, and independent, non-affiliated voters. I've written to you several letters, and I've gotten your responses, and I've also observed your deeds in Congress, as well as specifically recently your support of the AHCA. And I'm under the impression that you believe that you should represent the people who voted for you only. So I'm wondering, what do you do on a day-to-day basis to make sure you're representing all of the people in this district, including the ones who didn't vote for you?
Sure. So lots of correspondence back and forth, and I appreciate that. A lot of people send me emails and respond to all of them, as long as you don't use really bad language. A lot of people go on the website, put on stuff. Before every vote, I look at the call log, and a lot of folks call in and give their opinions, and I think that's helpful too.
Okay. Sir, what was your number? What was the number, please?
563's next.
Please give me your number. Thank you.
563.
563. Thank you.
There's a lot of talk now about tax reform, and tax reform will affect about 1% of the population. 99% of us won't see any benefit at all, and that 1% cares a lot about it. What I want to know is, how are we going to know that this isn't the Donald Trump Tax Reform Act, and it's really a tax reform act for all of us?
Sure, sure. The question about tax reform. So I think that the big issue for me is the competitiveness of American business, of American manufacturing globally. And so one of the things that I'm looking at is the repatriation of overseas. We've got tons of money offshore that is not coming back to America. And so, but we're unique in the world in that if you're a German firm working in America and you repatriate those earnings, you pay taxes in the host country in the United States, but when you repatriate the earnings back, you don't pay taxes again. We're unique in the world where you pay taxes again and the money's just not coming back. And so one of the ideas, in fact, that Democrat, I think from Maryland, has come up with, that the president supports, might not like that, some of you, is to say, let's, instead of 35% rate for the money coming, repatriated earnings, let's lower it to 10% under the theory that it will come back, and let's put that money into infrastructure. And so let's put it into the roads, bridges, airports, ports. I mean, let's put it in infrastructure.
Okay. Next.
680, and then the next three, please.
680.
Hello, my name is Amy Ross, and I am a constituent of yours. I live in Highlands Ranch. About a few weeks ago, I went to your office to ask some questions, actually, and also to voice concerns. And I had a gentleman basically slam the door in my face. And I've been trying to get information as to how you set up your office in a way that is only for I don't exactly know what you guys do in your office here, but
constituent work.
Constituent work, but you don't allow constituents to come in. So that's one thing that I would like for you to speak to. But my question is, sir, that and it's a little bit lengthy, so if you could just listen, please. Can you please explain what the Freedom Caucus is, and can you confirm whether or not you are a part of that group? Can you also please explain what the Tuesday group is and whether or not you participate with their work? Could you also please tell us, in your opinion, if you think that it's appropriate and responsible for any member of Congress to join or become a member of these secret societies?
Secret society, woo. So none of them are secret societies. I'm not a member of the Freedom Caucus. I am a member of the Tuesday group. And I am a member of a group called No Labels. And No Labels is a group of Republicans and Democrats that have come together to try and find common ground to get things done in Washington, D.C. It's not a big group, but it's a growing group, and it's an important group.
Okay. By my count, I have 649, 615, and next in the queue will be 576. So 649, 615, 576.
563 from upstairs.
Yeah, I'm 33 years old, and over the last 16 years, under bipartisan leadership, our debt has increased from $5 trillion to $20 trillion. With our national debt at almost $20 trillion and our unfunded liabilities over $84 trillion, what is your position on raising the debt ceiling?
Sure. So the question is about raising the debt ceiling. So I think there's a lot of confusion about the debt ceiling, that the debt ceiling doesn't stop our obligations, the debt ceiling doesn't stop spending. And so, you know, why we do it is questionable. But I know when I first got to Congress, I thought, well, if you don't vote for the debt, it just all stops. No, what happens is that the government still makes its debt service payments. And then I guess I'm trying to, well, anyway, it's bad. So, but the fact is that it doesn't stop all the obligations. What we have to do, what we fundamentally have to do, is mandatory. Right now, in 1965, this country was 1/3. The Congress was 1/3 mandatory spending, which is I don't want to call it entitlement spending because there are people that pay into it, like Medicare and Social Security. But 1/3 mandatory spending. 2/3 discretionary spending. Discretionary spending is that which we appropriate every year on an annual basis. Mandatory spending just drives itself. That if the money's not there in the Treasury, they just borrow for it. They have the authority to borrow for it without the consent of Congress, once it gets into the mandatory spending category. Today we are 2/3 mandatory spending, 1/3 in discretionary spending. If interest rates go up 1 point, the interest payments on because of that will be an additional $160 billion. We are literally, I mean, we've got to get this problem fixed. So when you talk about let's go to single payer, the answer is no. We just can't do it. given the $20 trillion debt.
Follow the guidelines, please. We'll try to get as many questions as we can. Congressman, are you okay with going just a little bit over? Okay.
Sure.
By my clock, it's 6:58, and so we'll continue this. I just gave you the time, folks. That's all I gave you was the time. 563 was
576.
576. Thank you.
Congressman, since the swearing in of this new administration, roughly every other day we have got a new piece of information regarding his team's connections with Russia, and we have a significant FBI investigation undergoing right now. However, the House and Senate committees both seem to be unable to get much done, the House committee especially. Would you support the establishment of an independent commission or a special prosecutor to get to the bottom of the Coke trial with Russia?
So that probably, unfortunately, I have more faith on the Senate side than the House side. I think the most dangerous place to be in Washington, D.C. right now is between Devin Nunes or Adam Schiff and a TV camera. And that's not the way the system's supposed to work. I mean, the people on the Intelligence Committee, are you know, on classified information, really are not supposed to be in front of the camera every 5 minutes.
Folks, please follow the guidelines.
I'm going to look at the FBI and see how they are going. I've got questions about their ability too. But I'm not there yet for an independent counsel, but I'm headed in that direction.
Okay, next question.
576.
576, thank you.
Hi.
I'm going to draw, excuse me, pardon me for interrupting. One more in the queue for us is 679. 679 in the queue.
Hi, my name's Julie Weinheimer. I'm one of your constituents, and I'm also running for Aurora City Council. As a spouse of a disabled veteran, I've always appreciated what you've done for our vets. However, I think any service member would argue that our soft power in the world is just as important as having boots on the ground. What are you going to do to protect our international affairs budget and the State Department so we can continue to use our influence in the world and not soldiers?
I mean, I think one of the reasons why I think General Mattis is such an extraordinary Secretary of Defense is because I think he really does understand that intersection between soft power and our conventional military. So again, it goes back to the military is not going to get what it wants in the Trump budget, and we're going to raise the State Department and other parts of the budget. But where it's going to settle down in the negotiation, I can't tell you. But there certainly is a value to it, and in my time in the Marine Corps, I can certainly ascertain that as well.
Okay, next question from, give me your number, please, and we'll move forward.
645.
645. I do not have a 645.
I'm sorry.
I have a 649, 615, and 679 in the queue.
679.
Congressman, my name's Rob Dukes, and we've talked about Medicaid a lot already, so some of this has already been covered, but my wife relies on Medicaid. She has fibromyalgia, seizure disorders, and lots of other pre-existing conditions. I know when we lived in South Carolina, it was almost impossible to get coverage. We'd frequently have to decide between going to a doctor and eating or whatever else, or going deeper into debt. And our medication costs close to $3,000 a month without Medicaid. I guess you've already sort of given your position, but I just want you to know that she says she will die without it. So I hope you consider that before.
No, I'm not saying do away with Medicaid at all. I'm saying that it's a split between the financial split between the federal government and the state government.
So can you promise you won't vote for a plan if it will cut care to those who are on Medicaid? Will we be worse off if I've seen like the AHCA that would have been a disaster. It would have turned into block grants. Block grants
So
always end up
the
getting cut
version
over
of the
time.
ACHA, what it had in it was what it had two choices for states, and one was the block grant, and the other one was capitated per enrollee. So those were the two choices, and was capitated per enrollee or the block grant issue.
Okay. Let's get to our next question number, please.
649.
649. 649.
Hi there, my name is John Ross. I live in Highlands Ranch. I'm a constituent of yours. We moved to Colorado to be in the great outdoors because of the environment. And with this new administration, I think there's a broad consensus that we must do more to combat climate change. But instead of increasing funding for programs necessary to address climate change, Trump's budget would completely decimate those. His budget would end funding for programs that help control power plant pollution, help states transition to clean energy, and conduct research for energy innovation. Can you commit, yes or no, please, your constituents and to us, that you won't agree to make any budget cuts to the EPA or other programs that protect our environment? Yes or no, please. Yes or no?
Well, it's first of all, it's ridiculous to say you won't agree to anything. I mean, there's always efficiencies in there. Do I agree with the Trump numbers? No. But do I agree that in some cuts, possibly? Sure. What I've done is a letter. One thing that I think is very important is the work that NREL does here, the National Renewable Energy Lab. And I've done a letter in support of that to the Appropriations Committee. I think that when we think about the environment and you think about carbon emissions and greenhouse gases, the research, I think the federal government needs to focus more on research for the next generation in terms of energy. So I think, you know, whether it's hydrogen fuel cells for surface transportation, or it's, I believe in nuclear power, where it's fission, where you don't, fusion versus fission, where you don't have the kind of waste where you do in standard reactors. But I think if we can, I think there's extraordinary things we can do. I mean, I think some of it's very wasteful. Biofuels, I'm sorry, corn, to make a fuel out of corn, I think is a complete waste. But I do think next generation fuels are extremely important, and we ought to invest on that. I think NREL does an extraordinary job there.
Okay. Next question, we'll also get another in queue. 631. So I have in my queue here 631, 615, and 679. And ma'am, if you just relay your number, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
631.
Thank you.
So we've talked a lot about Medicaid, and I brought some paperwork. I'm concerned you don't understand how Medicaid works for the consumer. It's so hard to get on these Medicaid waiver programs.
You mean just the enrollment process, or I'm sorry?
Oh no, we're already on it, but
right.
She turns 6 in November,
right.
So we need to get IQ testing, and I've had to put up state gatekeepers to get her IQ tested, get approval for that through the insurance company, and here's all the paperwork right here.
Well, I'm sure insurance company?
Insurance company.
But if you're on Medicaid, there's no...
She's on both. She's on a private insurance and then Medicaid.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes. So I brought some paperwork for you to look at if you're interested.
Sure.
But this is a problem for so many special needs families.
Sure.
We fight to, we eat, breathe, and sleep Medicaid.
Sure.
It's hard to get on these. There's a wait list for them.
Okay.
And now we're running into issues where Medicaid's refusing to cover things. I do not believe that these families use and abuse Medicaid because
Sure.
it is such a pain in the ass to stay on it.
Sure.
It is. I just went through 4 months of gatekeeping for my daughter to get an IQ test so that she's given a different assessment, adaptive testing, to be put on a wait list for Medicaid after her 6th birthday. This is, nobody uses and abuses Medicaid, nobody.
Well, I'd love to meet with your family. I wonder if we can set that up, if we can do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have 615 and 679 in the queue. Okay, we'll move on. One last call, 615, 679. We'll do 2 more here. 524, 524. 524? It was rigged. There is another 524 here. 606 and 629. 629 and 606. What number there?
615.
615, thank you.
Go ahead. First of all, sir, I'd like to thank you for your service to this country. I would like to know what your biggest goals are for the rest of the session and what you plan to do for the constituents.
Okay. Well, the goal was legislatively, what are my goals for this session or for the remainder of the year? Well, I'm on the Armed Services Committee and I'm on the Veterans Committee. So something that's mental health for our veterans is really. So from a couple of perspectives, first of all, I think the VA is taken a drug-centric approach to mental health, and I think it's killing our veterans. I think it's contributing to the suicide rate. And so we just had a Marine down in Colorado Springs who was a student, got out of the Marine Corps, was a combat veteran, was a student, went to the VA clinic there, didn't even see a physician, saw a physician's assistant, not to disparage that, but they gave him a very powerful drug. He complained about post-traumatic stress disorder, and they gave him a very powerful drug. And in the descriptions of how the drugs to be administered, it said requires monitoring. Well, he wasn't monitoring, he took his life, killed himself. And I find that there's a pattern where they give drugs to people to calm their nerves, but then they have to give them another drug to go to sleep at night, a drug to get up in the morning, and pretty soon they're under this cocktail of very powerful drugs. And so we've got to figure out a different path on that. But there are what the military did when they were drawing down, reducing the size, particularly the United States Army, was they were looking at minor infractions to discharge people with what was called other than honorable conditions. And a lot of combat veterans were coming back, having a difficult time adjusting, having some minor disciplinary issues, and being thrown out of the service without any access to care from the VA. No access to mental health care. Now, I want to fix the VA mental health care system, but no access. And so I have legislation to fix that. And then working on taking a look at those discharges to see if we can reevaluate some of those discharges. So that's probably one of the. And then I think just looking at, I know this sounds in the weeds, but we have a pilot shortage in the military. Last year, the United States Air Force was short 1,555 pilots, short 3,400 maintainers for their aircraft. So we've got to figure that out right now. My solution is a little bit different than General Mattis's, so we're gonna kind of clashing where I think we can. I don't think we need a military as large as it is on active duty. It's very expensive to maintain. And so if we can shift part of that capability to the Guard and Reserve, we can save a lot of money. And I believe we can maintain that capability. And so that's that's part pilot solution, but part solution in general in the military is in terms of cost savings. So we always have to be challenging ourselves in every facet of the federal government to how we can do things more efficiently.
Okay. Next question. And your number, please.
606.
606. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, Congressman Coffman. I would like to say thank you for taking the time to come out today. Really appreciate it. I would also like to say that I am one of your constituents, and I did come down to your office, and I had the door slammed in front of my face.
Sure.
And so this whole idea that it provides constituent services, I find really confusing. But once again, really thank you for taking the time to come out. So in the past, you have at times supported measures that advance equality for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer Coloradans and their families. For example, in 2015, you supported legislation that would prevent workplace discrimination against the LGBTQ community. I'm a member of that community, I'm openly gay, and I really appreciate this, but moving forward, will you sign on as a co-sponsor to the Equality Act and Student Non-Discrimination Acts when they are introduced in Congress this year, and continue your support of LGBTQ Coloradans?
I haven't read the bill yet. I'll certainly take a look at it. I haven't read the bill yet. Obviously concerned about equality issues, and we'll continue moving legislatively in that direction. But I haven't read the bill yet, so I can't say.
Okay, next, if you could just give him your number.
629.
629, thank you.
Hello, I'm Christina Lilly. I'm a constituent in your district. I have concerns about health care with regards to my family. We're veterans. A large majority of us in my family are veterans, including myself. But I'm more concerned that my mother, my father recently retired. As a result, she lost her health care because she's not old enough for Medicare. He is. And with the Obamacare Act, and even with what was proposed for Trump Care, it's too costly. And so I have concerns for my grandparents, my parents, and getting into the age where they need health care. What are the plans, and how can my parents or other constituents afford this?
Sure. Well, certainly those who are veterans and meet the income eligibility requirement can get care through the VA.
They're not retired from military service. They did their time and they got out.
No, and I'd be happy to get back with you on that.
Okay.
Because it doesn't require being retired. It just requires being honorably discharged. And so I'd be happy to talk to you about that and have my staff work with you on that. Otherwise,
and their dependents?
What's that?
And their dependents?
Not dependents.
Okay.
Not dependents. If they're not retired, they're not dependents. Certainly, have you looked at the Medicaid expansion?
No, I have not. It's not my father so much that I'm concerned about, it's my mother. She has no health care coverage right now.
And she's under 65.
And she's under 65.
Okay, okay. Why don't you and I touch base with that? Let's make it a constituent issue and see where you're eligible. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Congressman, we're at 7:15. Are we good to
let's do
continue?
some more.
Okay.
What do you say?
I've got 679, 679. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I didn't hear you, but that sounded fun.
The Russians must have been involved in this somehow. I don't know. Yeah.
I've got 679, 599, and 564. 679, 599, 564.
$599?
I'm sorry, the number?
$599.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Coffman, for being here tonight.
Sure.
My question is about education.
Sure.
Trump's proposals are to cut the education department. I'm not quite sure the amount. 20. Yeah, it's huge. We are a very modest means. My daughter just graduated, and we have a ton of student debt. And Ms. DeVos from the education department has proposed doing away with the student debt protections that Obama had put in place. What is your position on that?
Well, I'm not. So what I've supported about 4 different bills that certainly give flexibility in terms of repayment. One bill I think last year that allowed the refinancing of student debt. So I do think that, but I'm very worried about student debt. I mean, I think it's a when we talk about the next financial crisis in America, probably student debt. And I tell you what, certainly for those that have debt right now, we can do everything we can to help them. But I'm worried about young people in the future. And I think that, there is not enough focus. I mean, my father never went to college for a day. He went to trade school. He learned heating and air conditioning repair. And he had a successful small business at the end of it. When I visit schools oftentimes, and they say, well, what's your metric of success, and it's how many people go to a 4-year college. And I think we've got to broaden that view. We really have to broaden that view. This country needs more people in the trades. I'm trying to restructure the GI Bill for veterans right now because a lot of them, they come out with skills, but they don't necessarily match civilian skills. And so utilize the GI Bill to pay their salaries for on-the-job training, to pay their salaries for apprenticeship training, so they can learn a skill and have that path into the middle class. Yeah.
Okay, next question.
564.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Alicia Gorosky, and I am a constituent of yours. I know we've had a lot of discussions about health care. My question is about health care, but I want to talk about, I believe I heard you mention earlier when you were answering one of the questions that, one of the challenges is that Medicare and much of Medicaid right now are on a fee-for-service basis. So I want to actually ask if you and your fellow Republicans in Congress are also taking a look and trying to learn from the other side of the Affordable Care Act. We all agree the coverage, the exchange, that needs fixed. But there is so much more to the Affordable Care Act. Value-based payment. We need to be paying our physicians, our hospitals, our healthcare providers for value, not for doing more tests on patients and that type of thing. So I work in this field. I'm part of so much amazing work, the bundled payment, accountable care organizations, community-based care transitions program, where we are seeing communities working together, hospitals, home health agencies, skilled nursing facilities, working to provide better care at lower costs, and patients are happier. So why can't we learn from those, expand those, and fix what we have? So can you explain it and tell me whether you guys are looking at that as opposed to just the repeal and replace?
So on Medicare is not a part of this. Medicare is not a part of wasn't part of the ACA, is not a part of the reform. Medicaid is. And so it's giving states more flexibility on the Medicaid in terms of they're choosing their own delivery model on it. And so I think that's what's important. Okay. More flexibility for states on Medicaid.
Okay, so I just want to clarify that I'm actually talking about the parts of the Affordable Care Act
the ACO, yeah, sure.
Do affect, there are Medicare ACOs. And this is all being tested in Medicare. We're seeing huge cost savings in some of these programs. So I'm saying look at what's happening in Medicare, and let's see if we can apply it to the private industry and Medicaid. So I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of all of this great stuff.
Sure. I think the new director of CMS, I believe, let me tell you again, coming back from a state background before the federal government, I trust states. And so I believe that let them have the flexibility to have models that fit them.
Okay, we'll take, I believe, ma'am, are you 679? What's your number? 564, gotcha. And then 613. 613.
Administration has embarked on a broad rollback of environmental protections and proposes deep cuts to EPA's budget. At one time, you were quoted as saying you planned on standing up to Trump and that you would stand between your constituents.
When I disagree with him. When I disagree with him.
What I would like to know is, will you stand up to Trump's anti-environment agenda and the deep cuts to essential environmental and public health safeguards that he's proposing?
You know, I don't support all the cuts, but I've got to look at it, and I think that some are warranted to the EPA's budget. I think our government is just too big. I think our government is just too big. Go ahead.
Okay, next question.
Congressman, my name is David Leach. I'm a constituent. I'm a Democrat. I voted for one Republican this last time. It was you. I believe you position yourself as somebody who will vote your conscience, will work in a bipartisan manner within the Congress. I believe you say you want to do that. You mentioned a group that you're in earlier that's working on bipartisan issues, moderate issues. I'm not seeing much action. I voted for you because I thought you could be a leader in the House in that regard. I'm not seeing anything, not seeing very much. What are you planning to do in this session to lead in that regard?
Sure. Well, I think I mentioned to you working with the group No Labels, and we'll be working on a number of issues that we find in common. I think probably something on infrastructure will be one of them. I think veterans issues, I think those are pretty bipartisan. We'll move those forward. I'd probably rank with the Republicans on some of the LGBT issues. Immigration reform. Immigration reform will be very big. I sound like Trump, didn't I? You said very big. Huge. So I'm really hoping that, and I did a bill before the president was sworn in, with Luis Gutierrez in the House, and then there was a companion bill with Senator Durbin and Lindsey Graham in the Senate that took the DACA program and put it in law, and extended it out to 3 years till we can find, and so I really, I've got certainly a vision that in terms, we got to have secure borders. I think we have to have enforceable laws, but we have to be realistic. But we have to be realistic. And in being realistic, it's saying that, look, for the adults who certainly broke our immigration law, but haven't broken other laws, let them come out of the shadows, and have a legalized status. And for the young people who were taken here, wasn't their decision. I mean, I had a young woman who came to my office applying for the Naval Academy a couple of years ago at a Hinkley High School, graduated at the top of her class, had all the right requirements. Her parents took her here illegally from Mexico when she was a year old. She knows nothing of Mexico, that country. This is the only country she's ever known. And she ought to have that opportunity.
Okay.
Just a quick follow-up. Your constituents are looking for you not to support bills from the back row. We want you to lead. That's why we
I think I just said I was the sponsor of those bills that I just mentioned to you.
I appreciate that.
Okay, we're almost 30 minutes over your agreed time, so we appreciate your extra time, Congressman.
15 more minutes, is that okay? 15 more minutes? Okay.
Good.
15 more minutes. Okay. I'm sorry about that. Are you okay? I'm sorry.
Somebody up here has to get up at 3 a.m.
Oh,
That's
no.
not you.
Okay.
Come on, rough crowd. Jeez, levity. 620 is in the queue. 620. The gentleman that just asked the question, was that 679? 599. So I have by my count in the queue 620, 613, 679. Thank you.
You are talking about our debt, and we know that it's way up there.
Yeah.
But what about the money Trump is spending on vacations?
I don't know that I would compare the two. I hope he's not spending $20 trillion. No,
Please follow the guidelines. Thank you. We'll go. We have another question. Is that from above?
Yeah.
And can you please tell me the number?
He ought to stay at home. He ought to stay at home, right?
Please.
613.
Okay, let's get to our next question, please.
613.
613, thank you.
Okay, my question is on single payer. How do we know that it would work any better than the VA? Isn't the VA basically a single payer system?
Yeah, well, and the VA is a disaster. I'm sorry to say that. We want to fix it. But part is the personnel rules need to be reformed. It's very hard to get rid of somebody that's a bad performer there. We had a situation in the hospital here, the one downtown in the VA, where an employee got caught in the operating room, stole fentanyl, and was shooting up. You think that person was fired? No. Out of all of the employment wait time scandal, were the employees that put veterans on secret waiting lists, where some of them died to not get care because they wanted to make the wait times look smaller, and because they got cash bonuses for it. You think any of them got prosecuted? How many of you think had to give back the bonuses? Zero. We've got to fix the VA. And government run, it is an example of government run healthcare. It doesn't work.
We'll get three more in the queue here.
We're going to make it work.
573, 525, and 630. 573, 525, 630. And did we hear from 679? Can you be nice? Don't yell. I'm sorry I didn't get an answer. You and I should go have a cup of coffee after.
573.
573. Thank
My
you.
name is David Steffen. I live in Inglewood. I wanted to go back to a comment you made earlier about gun laws, and you had talked about how Wyoming is different than New York. So do you support the bill to have concealed carry reciprocity between states? Are you familiar with that bill, and do you support it or not?
You know, I'm not familiar. I'm going to take a look at it. I've got some concerns about it, but I haven't made a decision on it.
I mean, I think it boils down to, right, that you know, if you have a concealed carry permit in any state, you can then, or from any state, you can use it anywhere else. Right? I find that terrifying.
Yeah, I've not made a decision on it.
Okay, next question.
630.
Thank you.
Good evening, Congressman Coffman. I have a multi-part question about education. First, do you support H.R. 610, which was introduced by Republican Steve King, about school vouchers in schools, as well as the rollback in the nutrition programs? It's in committee right now. It's H.R. 610. And also, do you in general support school vouchers, and if so, why?
Okay. question about school vouchers, I think that's not a decision for Washington, D.C. to make. I think that's a decision for the states to make. I think K through 12 education is best made between locally elected school boards and state legislatures, and not in Washington, D.C. And so I did support that Success Act because it basically gave a lot more powers back to the states that the No Child Left Behind Act did. But I just think that, again, I think it's a state and local question. What I like to see, certainly as a resident of this district, is our charter schools, and that I think they do a great job integrated in with public schools. And I think the issue is, but then again, it's a local disease. I'm not going to put regulations on them from a federal perspective that are unnecessary, and I hope they don't at the state. My sister retired recently as a teacher from Littleton Public Schools. I have all the respect for public education. And, okay.
525.
525, thank you.
Good afternoon, or good evening now, Representative Coffman. I appreciate your comment about putting environmental issues into the trade issues, but that's really an international way of addressing many of the environmental concerns in terms of how that affects our manufacturing and industry.
Sure.
I am concerned about what you see as possibilities for protecting our water and our air in our own country. And in particular, I am wondering what you are hoping that will come out of the caucus that you just joined, as I understand it, which is the Bipartisan Climate Solution Caucus. And what you see coming out of that, especially as we see that the EPA, may be going through extreme problems in the next several years, including the HR bill that talks about getting rid of it. And so much of the state monies that come as grants from EPA will then also be reduced quite a bit, reducing their resources.
Well, I tell you, so it's a bipartisan caucus on climate change, and it seeks to, Republicans and Democrats seeks to strike the appropriate balance between the economy and between the environment. And so I look forward to working with them on finding solutions to it in terms of how do we reduce carbon emissions without killing jobs and strike that balance.
We're going to go 525. Go ahead.
Number, please. I'm sorry, I can't hear up here.
Okay.
525, second one.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for coming. I have a lot of concern about education, and I would really beg you to look back and double check about charter schools. The research is showing that they are not good. And my question is, because I have a lot of respect for the military, as you do, but there are a lot of the rest of us that are really worried about what's going to happen now, because all of our things are being cut. And we are not part of the military. So how do we help the rest of the country?
Sure. Well, again, that's I think at the end of the day, there's going to be a compromise where, again, I've said it before, defense spending will go down. It will be above where it is right now. But it's not going to be a 9% increase, and you're not going to see the kind of decrease that you are in discretionary programs.
Okay, I've got 647, 628, and 509. 509, 628, 647.
How are we doing time-wise now?
If you wanted 15 more minutes, it's about another 8 minutes.
Okay, we have 647 next.
Thank you.
Hi, as of March 28th, you have voted with Trump 24 out of the last 25 votes, or 96% of the time. You have supported laws that allow mining companies to pollute our streams, weaken reporting of work-related injuries, weaken rules that required federal contractors to report labor violations, allow Social Security recipients who can't manage their own finances to purchase guns, allow financial advisors to act in their own best interest rather than their clients', remove regulations that require energy companies to report payments to foreign entities, not to mention your support of repealing the ACA and taking away a woman's right to choose. So, not a single one of these actions make the United States a safer or better place in which to live. While I thank you for voting no on internet privacy, I expect more. I'd like to know when you're going to stop voting with the president who has a 35% approval rating and start fighting for Coloradians.
Okay. Let me just explain the veteran vote in terms of the firearms. Well, sure. And so essentially what they were doing is they were feeding every veteran who needed some assistance with managing their finances or whatever to a database that denied them a purchase of a firearm. That, to me, they should be adjudicated at the state level to make that decision and not an automatic decision. But so that bill was raised, so I just wanted to explain it. Thank you.
All right. Next question, please.
Next, we have 509. Go ahead.
Okay. Oh, right, and that's just over.
Please follow the guidelines, please.
Yes, thank you. Sir, the Defense Department has recognized climate change as a significant threat to our national security on a variety of levels, and most concretely, rising sea levels have already compromised military readiness in some areas, such as Norfolk, Virginia, along coastal Alaska. Meanwhile, the House of Representatives has voted several times to limit Defense Department spending on planning for or preparing for climate change. Do you think that climate change is a threat to our military, and if so, what should we do about it?
Okay, sure. I mean, I just don't see it. I mean, quite frankly, I think that's better handled in an agency like the EPA versus the Department of Defense. It's not appropriate for the Department of Defense.
Please follow the guidelines.
All right, we're going to go to the balcony for the next question.
Okay.
647.
I mean, how many votes have we had?
Folks, please.
Hello.
You know what I'm going to do? The people that, Republicans, when Obama was president, everything was, what are you doing to stand up to this president? What are you doing every time the president does something? Why aren't you speaking out against the president? Now I'm getting the same thing from the left. When I disagree with the president, I will speak out with the president. But I'm not going to do it every other day. It's when there's something significant. I spoke out against the president. I spoke out against the president over his first refugee plan. Look, I think those of you on the extreme left will never be satisfied until Trump is gone.
Our next, ma'am, people are waiting and people have had their numbers drawn. Ma'am, you're next up.
Mr. Coffman.
Hold off a sec because we can't hear you.
Okay, at this time, we'll go to the next question in the balcony.
Next Mr. Coffman. Please. Mr. Coffman. My name is Ellen Mackey.
Please, let us be respectful of the question being asked in the balcony.
Good evening, Mr. Coffman. My name is Ellen Mackey. I'm a resident of Littleton, Colorado. I've lived there for 25 years. I would like to bring the issue back to pre-existing conditions in healthcare. First of all, I want to say that I believe that it's ridiculous to say this country can't afford health care for all its citizens. Dozens of developed countries have universal health care. If they can do it, so can we. Tonight, you have repeatedly said that you do not want to deny people who have pre-existing conditions from getting health care. The new bill that is being kicked around by the White House proposes to establish high-risk pools for people with pre-existing conditions. Based on how those pools performed in the past, most analysts I've read say those pools will become unaffordable. Mr. Coffman, health insurance that is unaffordable is as bad as no insurance at all. Will you commit to limiting premiums for people with pre-existing conditions so that they can actually afford health insurance?
I think they should pay, that the premium cost should be no greater than what the average premium cost is for every American that has health insurance on the private market. But so we had a program in Colorado at one time. It's called Cover, I think it was Cover Colorado. And what that did was it had a tax, there was a tax on all insurance products, health, life, auto, I mean everything. And it went into a pool. And the problem was, so it got down to 140% of the average premium cost and when I was state treasurer. And the problem was that one of the largest insurers in the state of Colorado was Pinnacle. And Pinnacle refused to pay the premium tax. And so we could have gotten that down a lot further, but the objective is clearly to get it down to what the average premium cost is. I think that's one way to do it. What I mentioned before, the reinsurance mechanism is another way to do it.
Okay. By my count, we've got 2 in the queue. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
And just to give, just to give a time, my clock 7:44. So we'll have this be the final 2.
Okay.
Okay.
Congressman Coffman, my name is Jack Forehand. I'm a constituent of yours. Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for your service. The question I have has to do with North Korea.
Sure.
It appears as though North Korea is becoming an increasing threat to the national security of the United States. And there's a potential for even nuclear action involving North Korea. What would you recommend and advise that the government do to deal with the increasing threat of North Korea?
Okay. Question about North Korea. That, I mean, it's a real concern because it's a very unstable regime. Developing nuclear weapons with the ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missile capability to deliver those to the United States, that they are headed in that direction. And so what we have to do, I think, as a country, is we've got to put pressure on China, because China is the lifeline for North Korea. I mean, China, I mean, it is the black market on the border that provides all the goods for the elite. I mean, it's trade with China. I mean, China is North Korea's really only ally. And I think they like the instability. But I mean, we talk about trade as an issue. I mean, they're fairly significant. They're dependent upon the United States for trade. We have to exercise all leverage possible to put pressure on China to deal with North Korea. So I think that's the direction we need to go.
Okay. 509, last question.
Thank you.
I have on my phone, Jeanette Carmody, I'm a constituent of yours. I have on my phone a picture of my great-grandparents who were killed in Auschwitz. What I would like to know from you is what is your thoughts at this time of a president who has anti-Semitic people in his cabinet who cannot even acknowledge what happened in the Holocaust by calling them Holocaust centers, who say that Hitler didn't use gas on his people, And what is your thoughts? I need to hear from my congressman that these things are unacceptable.
Sure. I mean, Spicer made a terrible mistake yesterday, and he admitted it. If you're not familiar with what he did, is that he, I mean, he needs to go. You know, because I just don't think he's serving the president well. So what he tried to do was this. He said that, and it's true, the German army in World War II had chemical weapons and chose not to use them because they felt that the retaliation would you know, the math didn't work for them. But at the same time, so he was trying to make that point about Russians. But then what he did is he didn't mention the fact that 6 million Jews were killed by chemicals. Yeah, I don't want to apologize for him. In Russia, the greatest insult you can do, and he was incompetent in doing it, but the greatest insult, the Soviet Union lost 20 million during World War II. And the greatest insult you can give a Russian leader is any comparison to Adolf Hitler. But the fact that, but he was incompetent in his delivery, and I think he's obviously serving the president poorly and ought to go. I think we're...
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Congressman Coffman, thank you. Nice job. Yeah.